I'm not afraid anymore.
I will say
I want to be.
About the general Halloween season. I can't believe that we only have like a week left of it. It's flown by.
Yes, October has dissolved without question.
Not done the things that I usually do or like to do. I haven't like left my place really.
Which it was pretty nice early October, but we have had a spell of chill factor. So
yeah,
I mean, but here we are. Yeah, we made it to episode 36, man.
I know.
Which is very impressive. Our goal is to make it to 40 by the end of the year, right? If we can get 40 in a year, I feel like that's a really solid goal.
Yeah, we'll make it before December. But yeah, I didn't go to like any haunted houses. I didn't go to like any pumpkin patches. Pumpkin patch. Yeah, I haven't done anything. I haven't watched as many horror movies as I like to. I like to really cram them in there.
Yeah, I would say my Halloween ingestion has been not what it normally would be either. That being said, this new neighborhood that I live in goes all out with the decorations.
Oh, I love
way
that.
Better than when I was living in Edgewater. This North Center zone really pulls out all the stops. I think it's because there's a lot of kids here. Yeah, apparently there's one person that has like this wheel of doom that they bust out on Halloween where the kids get up there and they spin it and they can win like a hot dog or a full-size candy bar or a lemonade or something. But yeah, I'm actually really impressed with what I'm seeing in terms of decorations. There's one house down the block that has like a Mario theme to it, which is just
fun.
Amazing, being the big Chris Pratt fan that I am.
It's all Chris Pratt related Mario.
Yes.
But yeah, it's just funny and ironic that the season is coming to an end and here we are discussing Halloween Ends.
Yes, but as the horror fans we are, we do embrace, fall itself. November just has that eerie vibe to it beyond just the Halloween factor, and of course, Day of the Dead. And then, honestly, Christmas is becoming kind of scary for me. So it continues, man. Every month there's reason to find the spook factor. So
yeah,
I'm not too worried about it coming to an end, but I agree. It's been one of those years where it's been hard to squeeze in all the blood and guts, or let them out, rather, whatever,
This movie's fresh in my mind. I just watched it.
Good. Yes, I watched it a couple days ago, and like you noted right before we started, it was not a predictable direction, especially given the trailers for this Halloween Ends movie. I anticipated a tit-for-tat, just sparring ping-pong action between Michael and Jamie Lee the entirety of the flick. But that wasn't the case. I was a little disappointed given Halloween Kills' lack of Jamie Lee, Laurie Strode's presence, that there wasn't more. That being said, I really enjoyed what was there of Laurie Strode this time. I felt like we got a much better callback to who she really was. There was no more of this underground warrior woman. She was able to reconnect with who she was. Before the trauma, which I appreciated what was going on underneath. We don't have to dig into that immediately here, but yeah.
I think that's very interesting, and I think, yes, it's very purposeful. I think, she's the very start of this movie, not the very start, but we see that she's doing some narration. It kind of feels like, I'm like, we're going to get something. She's giving a speech or she's writing something. She's writing a book. She is in a new house. She's talking about this new house, which is also amazing. Way better than her last dump. And I think that was all done on purpose. Halloween was ending for her. She thought the nightmare was over. However, she is still not 100% happy. And you can tell that. She has her granddaughter living with her. She's lost her daughter.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard for her to transition into this normal life, but you were so right on the money with that she is a more grounded, realistic person/character.
And she's got humor again. To me, that is the biggest sign of starting to get past something, is when you can find the funny again. One of my favorite moments, even though it felt a little strange in the moment, but when she's digging the guts out of the pumpkin, which itself has a little bit of meta business in it. given the title sequences, which I did want to note. Loved this opening title sequence with the strangeness they were messing with. David Gordon Green's been messing with the staple that is the pumpkin. This one I thought was really fun.
They did an homage to Halloween 3, which was a departure from Michael Myers with the font on the actual one. It says Halloween, and it's more of that slanted, like italic.
Blue. I missed that.
That was,
and granted, in what was it, Kills, in the second one in this installment, we do see those masks from Halloween 3.
Yes,
I think it's on a carousel, or what do you call those things? Those at the playground, the kids sit on, and then they spin, and then barf.
The spinner. The giant spinner.
Yeah, the spinner. So that is cool. I do appreciate that there's a few callbacks I'd like to touch on. But yeah, I mean, I don't understand why at this point she doesn't have a dog. And how does Laurie Strode afford that house? How is she making money if this is her memoir? She hasn't been established as a writer prior. We don't really get any sense of how she's earning.
Right. And I was rewatching the first David Gordon Green Halloween installment. And she seems a little not desperate for money, but she gladly lets those podcasters in for the $3,000 cash.
Yeah, that's kind of a big question. Unless, I mean, now it's Allison, right? Her granddaughter.
Yeah.
She is a nurse, so maybe she's paying the rent. Maybe they're renting that house. I mean, this is all very fascinating for our listeners, considering the domestic realities and the financial status of our characters.
But I think we all wondered the same thing. Like, how did she afford this beautiful, like, Victorian home? Maybe she's got a book deal we don't know about because she's writing a book. Maybe she's got like an upfront book deal.
Yeah, I think that's a strong possibility. And nurses do okay. I mean, it's not they should get paid more, but
they certainly should.
And you know what? That actually adds to then the urgency of Jamie or Laurie trying to keep Allison from running away with Corey in the movie. She's like, how am I gonna pay for this house without my nurse granddaughter supporting me? The subtext, right?
Yeah.
The domestic subtext of
afford
Halloween.
This place.
But there is something to that. I mean, I don't want to, bury the lead here, but just I think the Halloween series is really good at stripping what is supposed to be the comfort and security of the suburbs that's being Haddonfield, and how you're supposed to feel at home and, without worries, without thinking there's going to be murderers or trouble like there would be in urban zones. Taking that and really, turning it on its head and kind of demonstrating how sometimes the what would you call it, the more suburban coddling, I guess, can lead to strange perversions, I guess, and conditions that we see, of course, with Michael and the strangeness that he has with his family and his sister. And then, of course, this is popping up with Corey and his mom's relationship, which kind of was super off-putting. Let's put it that way.
Oh, man.
But sort of how closeness and not being able to have, a more perspective, I guess, and understand where other people are coming from, or more homogeneous, I guess, existence can actually breed mutation.
Correct. And I would love to dissect that family dynamic because I'm a little confused by it still. He almost feels like either he's adopted or that this man in his life might not be his actual father, right? Corey's.
I love this character. Let's talk about Corey's dad here for a second because he's introduced pretty early on. I mean, he runs the junkyard. So you're suggesting just based on what, physicality? Because I didn't question that was not his dad. What makes you think it wasn't?
Well, when he first gives him that motorcycle, he doesn't say, "Thanks, Dad." I think he calls him by his name.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
And then after that, their relationship seems so distant. It's like he's more of his boss than his father, even though this man seems very compassionate. He seems like he's
very likable.
Oh, yes. I'm not arguing that.
In that awful moment where his mom does kind of like try and say, "You're out of this house. You smell like Allison." and then smacks him, and there's like, oh no, and then kisses him on the lips, all awkward, then
Weird.
scuttles off, and the dad just like
Man.
watching the whole thing in the background. I do hope you find love.
I hope you find
I
love.
love this character. I got such short shrift there, the way that he went. I am glad he didn't go at the hand of Corey,
yeah.
Michael Jr.
Can we? I want to step back now that we've introduced Corey into our conversation here. I want to go back to the very top of this movie. We see that it's 2019 now, so a year after the events of the first installment of this trilogy.
Right.
Corey is riding his bike. He's a last-minute lifesaver because he is the babysitter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, with this dynamic is fun for the start of the movie because you're like, oh, they're introducing a new babysitter. Jamie Lee was the babysitter. Thought that was fun. The tragic events unfold, but I even said this out loud. After the parents come home and they're holding their child on the floor, you look up at the top of the stairs and Corey's looking down holding a knife, just like Michael Myers was in the first movie over the banister. There's a shot of him looking over. I mean, so in the first moment, I'm like, are they going to give us a new Michael Myers?
I didn't see it coming. When I was watching Mara, she called. She's like, oh, this is going to be about him becoming the new Michael Myers, setting it up for the next.
Also, small detail here. Corey Cunningham, CC, same first initials, Michael Myers, MM. I thought there's like some little things that were like kind of on the nose, but also were very.
CC is also. You're like copying somebody in an email, you know what I mean? So in a way, he's like, the copy is getting this evil is getting forwarded into him, you know?
Copycat murderer. Yeah. So.
What do you think about this opening sequence? Did it go on too long? Because I was going back and looking at some of the older Halloweens, and not all of them have such a long opening. The only one that notably is like a 10-minute segment is H2O. And I definitely think we should talk a little bit about H2O during this, because this is completely erased, this one.
Right. I was going to say, this is no longer H2O, on our timeline.
She has a son, not a daughter.
Yes.
Right? And it's Josh Hartnett of all people. And we get a very more sexualized Jamie Lee in it, and that she has a very normal relationship with her boyfriend, not Alan Arkin. Is it Alan Arkin? It's one of the doctors from Chicago Hope, I think.
Yeah.
It's just, it has such
Adam Arkin.
Adam Arkin. Okay.
Alan Arkin's son. Yes.
I remember seeing H2O in the theaters, really enjoying it. And do you think they could have integrated this movie? I mean, sans the fact at the end she very ridiculously decapitates him with like a wrench or something, just swinging at his head. But I did want to note that in H2O at the end, she pins him with the car, but they have this moment where they're kind of like touching hands, like they do in this one, where she has that empathy for him or sympathy, but then she snaps out of it and cracks his head off.
It's a part of her,
they
it's a part
have
of her life.
Worked it in? Could Judy Greer's character have been a son instead, or was the nature of that first reboot Halloween from 2018 so feminist oriented that's really why they had to go that angle?
The only thing I would say about trying to connect these two movies is that the path they took Laurie down is very different. I would assume Laurie Strode in our David Gordon Green timeline doesn't go to college. She stays in Haddonfield and just kind of dedicates her life to. Now, I believe her role in H2O is her position, her career is at. Is it a boarding school or
prep school? She's the headmaster of.
Right, and that's my point, is that the character, those two characters, if you were to compare them side by side, have very different paths.
Same Laurie.
Yeah.
That's a really strong point. And I do think David Gordon Green does go the more appropriate direction with her. I remember seeing that first one, 2018, and really getting a Scream 3 vibe with Sydney, where she's kind of holed up and traumatized beyond belief and kind of gets forcibly sucked back in. But yeah, I think it is the better direction. That being said, I think I like H2O as a movie better than all three of these.
That's
Am I
a very
crazy?
interesting.
With the exception of the end and the really cheesy decapitation.
Here's what I would say is that the kills in Halloween, David Gordon Green's Halloween and Halloween ends or kills are better than H2O's.
Yeah, okay, I will give you that. I'll give you that. I guess in terms of maybe just H2O is more fun, I guess, but maybe Halloween is not meant to have that sort of fun factor that
Right.
you know the Weinstein producers of H2O brought to it. They really know how to bring the fun.
That still has Miramax's name attached to these movies.
I noticed that. Yes, yeah, that is something. But yeah, going back to what you were talking about, I loved also that Corey comes in here at the top. He's the inverse of our Jamie. It's 2019. Babysitters don't have to just be girls. And similarly, he's doing everything that the parents tell him not to do, showing scary movies to the kid, letting him stay up past 9 o'clock.
Terrible babysitter. No
Yeah,
authority.
he's not a good.
No
but
authority.
the kid was a brat. I don't
The
see you
kid was
telling
terrible.
that kid, who's then gonna go and like lock you in the attic or whatever.
This kid's
going
wetting
to
his bed, and he's gonna talk back to this 21-year-old. I mean, come
And the
on.
kid was carrying the knife, right? He's holding that knife over the balcony, as you mentioned. But the kid is the one who had brought it up there to like scare him with it. So the kid, it's himself is a little psycho.
It was almost his trail of breadcrumbs to like lead him there. Like he left it on the stairs.
That's right. He pulled a Hansel and Gretel situation with the kid.
He lured him in.
Yeah. Yes. Because initially we're thinking, okay, Michael's here. Michael's
here, right? He's living.
Let's talk about the fact that Michael has disappeared for 4 years. This movie now jumps ahead 4 years.
This is the introduction to my problems with this movie. We're supposed to believe that Michael Myers, I would assume the way they're writing this is that he has been healing.
Yes.
Right? After the abuse and gosh,
because he takes a whooping at the end of kills.
He certainly does. So we're supposed to believe now that Michael Myers has been living under the bridge as this weird bridge troll in the sewers with this other weird homeless man who clearly is not afraid of Michael Myers. What is Michael doing these 4 years aside from healing?
Right.
Dying, kind of? Aging?
Yeah, maybe trying to find the will to kill again. He needs this surrogate to essentially. I mean, if you remember the moment that Corey brings him the cop, right? He then Hansel and Gretel. Similarly with the knife, this cop who was interested in Allison, and they have this really awkward scene in the restaurant where that's why I brought it up at the beginning. I got such a kick out of Corey after he kind of scares off the cop, which is something you don't expect to happen. There's a kind of a macho cop. Right. He says, I don't know if you heard that, but it's straight out of Home Alone. I'm not afraid anymore. It just, there was a couple lines in here that really bothered me. But yes, back to your point, I'm assuming that he was just drained and he's probably living off of like rats. I don't know. Or does evil even need sustenance? We've never seen Michael like chomp into a burger or anything, right? We've never seen him eat. Like, is killing his sustenance and he's just like a vampire kind of wasting away until Corey brings him that sacrifice. And then it does, in that moment when he does bring him the cop and like is holding him on the ground while Michael stabs into him, it felt very like a religious ceremony, like a baptism, converting Corey fully into what he becomes, Michael Jr.
So I want to talk about the first time though, so Corey ends up at the bottom of this, I don't know, I guess the bottom of the bridge because these weird high school seniors from the band.
Gosh. Yeah, let's talk about them in a second. But yeah.
Threw him over. I mean, well, the one did. The leader of this gruesome foursome or whatever throws him over and very easily, has no problem, just doing that. So he's dragged into this tunnel.
Yeah.
By Michael Myers, right?
Right.
And then doesn't do anything, doesn't kill this kid. So he recognizes something in this kid, or whatever. But when Corey starts to leave and we see Michael's hand reach through the wall to grab him, they have this weird moment where they're actually literally looking at each other's eyes, and we see flashes of abuse, really, pain that they've. But why? This is the thing. Maybe my biggest problem with this movie is the way we've introduced something new to Michael as a character. We have now introduced empathy, or it's very strange, because in that moment I really didn't know what to think. Like, Michael is...
He doesn't kill the kid at the top of kills. Remember the kid in the street trick-or-treating?
Right. They
balls up. So we have seen him
hold back or refrain,
let someone go before. But you're right. It wasn't consistent in that whole sequence. I felt where the turning occurs was a little ham-handed. Like you said, I don't understand how he was pulled in, and then I guess Michael disappears and gets around a corner, so that when he does grab him later, there's like this hole in the wall where they are able to make sweet eye contact like that.
I'm just confused. Like, what are we supposed to learn in this moment? That Michael has learned something? Has Michael learned something by taking the beating from that crowd? Does he have a new perspective literally on life and saving life? But then when Corey brings him the cop, he easily kills him. I don't know.
Easily kills him. And then it's really inconsistent, because when Corey then changes later and he wants to like get his full Michael Myers on, their budship hit the fun uncle that Michael was to him is no more. He's like, I want that mask. So then they have a little wrestle.
I almost compared it to like a weird brotherly thing, that they're like fighting over a toy. They're not hurting each other in that moment. They're just roughhousing, and
it's very true.
It's weird. It's just weird that Michael has, one, dragged this kid into their first opportunity to kill him. Two, grabs him by the throat, doesn't kill him. When they kill the cop together, there's a moment where Corey's almost like his corner man in a boxing match, where he's just sort of like, like inspiring.
You can do it, Mike. Come on, Mike.
You're a bum, Mike. And I just don't know their relationship well enough to figure out what's going on here.
I agree. Some of the reviews I was reading was that a lot of people are just disappointed how much it focused on Corey, and that's not what people went in there wanting or expecting. I will say, I feel like it was at least an interesting new direction. I appreciated the idea of evil being contagious and him being infected. And granted, he did cut his hand. So all of this might actually be like, if we want to talk like biological instead of supernatural, he could have just been, infected literally, and like losing brain capacity and going, bonkers via blood infection or something. We don't know for sure.
Yeah, whenever there's violence reintroduced, he actually removes the bandage and almost likes the pain, or he's feeding off of it. But there's another weird scene to contradict this, where the father of the son from the beginning is shooting pool, because both of those parents just hang out in this bar now, maybe not even together. I understand that their relationship is ruined, but the father says something about how he had seen something in Corey's eyes, I think even before he pulled up alongside of him, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
this dad, actually, I would say it's really interesting, because the two fatherly figures in this are, I feel like, two of the best characters and potentially two of the best performers too, because the speech you're talking about in the bar with the dad whose son was killed accidentally by Corey, the way he does describe how Corey's eyes had changed, it's actually one of the most interesting, legitimately powerful moments in the movie.
Yes.
It's like it's more scary than some of the murder sequences, and that this actor really expresses what has happened and kind of gives more depth to what otherwise might seem a little cheesy, because the dad was a little more forgiving and realized that it was an accident at the beginning, unlike the mom.
Right. But then, I mean, I loved your idea there that maybe he's infected, but then this father then throws this plot wrench, like, wait, so then he has always almost had this within him. Did his mom's weird abuse or
Yeah.
upbringing destroy him. And I also like that you just described, we've got different father figures in here. We've got the Corey's father, who weirdly is a disconnection, and he doesn't even call him dad. We've got this father who has lost a son. Then we have the father of the bully who abuses the bully.
Oh, that's right.
To actually provide another mental,
to why that kid's such a dick. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, this mental struggle of just of mental abuse rather. But then maybe we're looking at Michael wrong. Maybe we're looking at Michael like I just described him as a brother. Maybe it's another father figure to Corey.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. That's one thing I'm curious if you recall, because I really just only recall ever meeting Michael's sister. Do we ever get a sense of Michael Myers' parents in any of the films? Do we know what they were?
Rob Zombie's
that's
film we do.
True. Yes. Okay. So they were super abusive in Rob Zombie's.
Right. And that's Rob Zombie's interpretation. Now we have a whole new director, though. I mean, I would like to believe that David Gordon Green did a nice sit down with John Carpenter and discussed things like that, discussed Michael's background and upbringing. But yeah, I think the overall message here is that weirdly, Michael was born with this evil, and maybe Corey was too. And the evil is inside of him.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I don't know. I personally am more of a, nurture over nature sort of guy in life.
I completely agree in a real world scenario.
Yes, but in this, we're suggesting it's nature over nurture.
In this, I'm suggesting something else, because it would then define why Corey was maybe potentially born with this evil inside of him.
And then nature can kind of like provoke it out of you, because there are some interesting things that occur in terms of pain. What seems like Corey trying to amplify what is beginning to burgeon in him. For example, when he is kicked out of the house by his mom, he goes and he sleeps in the blood puddle.
Yeah. Out of all the places in that house,
the blood puddle of the kid that he accidentally killed is where he's resting his head. I mean, immediately reminded me of when I used to put my textbook underneath my pillows and just hope that the intelligence
osmosis.
Yes, go into my brain via osmosis. I'm assuming the bloodlust is coming through that pillow into Corey's head.
Well, let me ask you a question then.
Yeah.
If this is the direction that, Halloween ends, but is it finished? Is it over? What do you feel about the idea of literally passing a torch to somebody else? Because there was moments in the movie where I'm like, is this the guy we want to be the new Michael Myers? But then when he actually wears the mask and he's pulling off those murders, you're like, he's got this whole new energy to Michael Myers. Like he does. He can move more freely. One of the things that did kind of make me feel like he wasn't quite what his pappy is, or his pseudo pappy is. I remember his fingers get crunched in the sliding door when he's chasing the nurse who he does kill, the coworker of Allison, and he goes, "Ow!" You know what I mean? And there's another. Yes. Michael Myers is never going, "Oh!" I mean, he's banging on the glass door like, "Let me in."
Yes, there's definitely an immaturity to him that is definitely not in Michael. There's the other instance is when Jamie Lee then does shoot him twice and he falls off the balcony and he goes, "Oh!" He's got these really kind of like almost effeminate comedic sounding like yelps when he gets hurt.
Jerry Lewis, like,
yes.
The new comedic Michael Myers.
I agree. I don't think were this to continue, he's the best. I like the actor. Don't get me wrong. I actually thought this kid was pretty good. This Rohan, I think is his name in life. I liked him. I actually thought he was a really compelling actor. But yeah, I think Michael Myers has to be Michael Myers if they're to reboot this again in 10 years or whatever. I think there's an angle. Can you remind me, in the Rob Zombie, does he deal with the teenage years of Mike Myers, or Mike Myers is just in jail?
No, Michael Myers. So in the Rob Zombie films, we see Michael maybe at the age of like 12, 13.
Right.
Remember, he's got the actor, the boy with the long blonde hair. And then there's a time jump and he is this monster of a man. Like he is
right.
Massive.
And he's in the asylum for a long time, right?
Yes,
In our
correct.
first movie,
Almost
he
the
gets
equivalent of like the David Gordon Green stuff. Michael breaks out again. You know, it's like in all these films, Michael somehow still manages to break out.
okay. I honestly don't know how you do more without it being terrible.
Right, and that was the question of my. I'm like, how do I feel about this? So my question was like, how do you feel about someone else becoming Michael Myers? And I think that they toyed with that idea, and then I think by the end of it, we were all just like, no, we want real Michael Myers.
Yeah, I agree. I think if they did go that angle, I don't know. I don't know about Michael's sexuality, which really throws me off because I'm wondering, is at some point that he kind of force himself on somebody? Is there a bastard child of Michael out there that finds out who his dad is or something?
Here's a crazy plot twist of my own that I'm going to throw out there, because this is what I was thinking while watching this movie, is that isn't Corey's father, and that's why he doesn't call him dad. But this man is a good man, and that maybe Corey's mother slept with somebody else, and that's why maybe it was Michael Myers in a crazy universe.
Whoa.
So maybe it actually is his father, and that's why they saw that connection, and that's why this whole theme of this movie is about father and son. Now,
that's a really interesting theory, because maybe that's what kind of made her so awful. Maybe I don't necessarily think that she would have slept with him, but it's very possible that given Michael murders, that he could also do other stuff.
Right. And this is, I think, just backstory maybe left for us to figure out on our own, is that this man who came in never really was able to fill that role, and he tried, and he treated Corey right, but at the end of the day, Corey was someone else's son, and that person who was his father was evil.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. Corey's dad could maybe be then a direction of the future films. That being said, I do not want David Gordon Green doing any more Halloweens. I love David Gordon Green as a dark comedic writer director. I think I appreciate what he's doing. He's clearly a huge fan of Halloween. Right. I'm not sure you could have done much better. But that being said, these movies are not great as a whole, right? They're not great. They're not top of the line horror.
And something I want to talk about is, and I was just completely wrong, is when we had talked about Halloween Ends in the past, I said the third installment would have tied things together nicely, and then it is exactly not what happened. It was, and I was hoping that the trilogy would have then become like, well, it's a really good cohesive story arc between these three films. That's not what happened, unfortunately. No, I mean, there are moments in these movies that I really like.
Same.
But
yeah, as a cohesive unit, it's just not there. I think Jamie Lee put it kind of the best. She was recently on The View discussing the flick and just really kind of focused on the fact that each movie has this underlying metaphor. The first one being kind of Me Too stuff. The second one being kind of mob violence that we see a la January 6th.
We talked about that before, yeah.
And this one is about recovering from trauma more than anything, and like trying to move past, what did happen. And also, of course, when I do like the aspect of Michael's been gone for 4 years, so a new boogeyman has been created. They need somebody else to funnel hate into, be it Corey for what he accidentally did to the kid, or even now kind of having beef with Jamie Lee. And I remember that the punk in the band saying something like you were teasing him, when she was just living her life, but to suggest that she teased Michael into doing what he's done, and that's now.
And that's another common theme. There's the woman in the grocery store parking lot who comes out and like, this is your fault. That Michael Myers was your problem. Michael Myers, it's like blaming the victim. It's blaming the victim, and they said that Jamie Lee was the one who provoked him to murder, which is just absolutely insane. But I think that's what this third movie is about. I also think it's about bullying and bullying culture. Look at the way the high school students treated somebody who was already damaged emotionally.
Right. And let's take a little pause here, because one of my favorite things about David Gordon Green is he's able to really kind of flip archetypal expectations, you know,
Right.
as we discussed with Cora being the male babysitter. And now, in a lot of ways, you could say Jamie has Michael tendencies too. Like one time, she sits up just like him, really like stiff, you know, and legs
He
straight,
does.
straight
Yes.
out.
Right outside of the radio station, which was another weird just.
And she moves also. Jamie Lee or Laurie starts to move similarly to Michael too. I remember the scene where she's on the chair, kind of like being really annoying.
Oh yeah, the rocking.
And then Corey looks away for 1 second, and then she's gone. It's like she's like Michael or Batman now. She just has the capacity to just disappear when you look away for half a second.
Yeah, out the window.
Which,
yeah.
Again, is like I think it's one of these things where you can let evil infect you, or
You're letting it in. Letting it in.
You use it and learn from it, and be able to go the direction that Laurie Strode does with it.
Think about the way that the doctor also abused his role and abused the people underneath him, and I think it's just this movie. The three of them were just about like how terrible our culture can really be, and like how we interact with each other is just evil.
Yeah. All right, let's talk really quick about the kills, specifically because when you bring up the doctor, that's the best kill on the whole movie, if you ask me. Even though you don't actually see it happening, you see the subsequent stabs, corkscrew in the neck with the bag over it, so you get to see kind of the blood smushing in there. That's really a great kill. That being said, did Corey ever know that the doctor and the nurse were kind of jerks to Allison? Was that established? Because I don't remember that conversation.
When he's getting his sutures in his hand looked at the very beginning, the doctor is talking to him, and then he kind of belittles.
Okay.
And he's like, actually, Corey says to her, "You shouldn't let him talk to you like that."
Yes.
And when she's talking about burning the thing all down, and he's like, "I'm going to light the match," that was him going after the doctor, in my opinion.
See. Okay. Yeah. All right. That makes more sense. And actually, getting back to the whole archetypal flip-floppery, what I wanted to also mention was, of course, about the band kids being the bullies. That's one thing. These kids are like misfit central, and they were the ones that were being the dicks. But also, just in terms of horror tropes and archetypes, when you sleep with someone, because I think we can safely assume Corey was a virgin until we do establish that he and Allison had laid down together. And it's after that sex that he goes full Michael, that he goes full killer. Right. He, in the invert, like he's dead. The good part of him then is dead now that he has had sex, similar to how you can't have sex in horror in former films without getting killed. So in a way, he dies there, but in a different way, wholly, you know?
Yes, I speaking of more kills, though, I liked the kid who always had a drumstick on him. It went right through his eyeball.
That was good. I wish we saw it, but
I know
I was happy with that makeup.
I wish we saw it too. That sequence was fun, though.
The nurse getting killed, a la that first movie, stabbed into the wall. You gotta love that. That's classic Michael right there.
That was a nice connection.
Let's talk more about the band kids kills, because I loved. Unfortunately, there was the one girl, Margot, who actually was the only one kind of trying to stop the other three from being like horrible.
One kid,
and she got it the worst. So she's trying to run away. Can't get over the fence. Finally does. Is all barbed wired up when the truck just mows her down, traps her underneath the fence. But yes, then she gets stomped on by Corey, and that's a really graphic scene. You don't see the other girl. I'm assuming she was just bludgeoned with the wrench. And then, of course, the main dick of the 4-spot band. The blowtorch is good, man.
Oh, man. That melted his face. Yeah.
That was
good. That was good.
I mean, you got to have solid kills. And like you had mentioned, what makes these better than H2O in terms of horror is that the kills are much more grisly and impacting, I would say.
They're not early 2000s horror movie feels, you know?
Right.
These are much more violent.
A lot of expo in this one. It's like close to 45 minutes or an hour before we do get a little murder and mayhem.
Well, I'll say right out of the gate, though, that kid flying over that banister and hitting the floor was pretty graphic.
That was well done. I completely agree. But yeah, then the interim pacing. What did you feel about the pacing?
Yeah, I don't think things really took off until the third act. And then we had a really nice pacing towards the end there. I think as soon as Corey puts on that mask, we really get things cooking into what we wanted. Granted, Corey's the one wearing the Michael Myers mask. I think he got a little easy when Michael just snapped his neck.
I agree. That seemed like, but is that mercy from Michael
mercy,
though?
as if you would put down like a deer you hit a car with or a bird. Yeah.
This is a good moment to talk about this. Okay, so he obviously has superhuman strength-ish if he's been shot twice, still able to sit up like Michael. But then when Laurie's all like, you think my granddaughter would actually be with you sort of thing? And then he goes, well, she can't be with me. And then he stabs himself in the neck, and I hate it.
Yeah, I didn't
understand that at all. Was that him trying to be merciful to her? Was that his humanity being restored in a little bit?
Right. Was it a moment of actual clarity of like
that he
guilt? Like he was snapped out of being Michael Myers for a second and takes his own life?
Like,
or
if
was
I
it just
can't be
selfishness?
with her, that means I would kill her, so I better kill myself in that moment.
Right.
I guess I just wanted a little more clarity that if we are then supposed to see that he saw the error in his ways, because otherwise it just seemed pointless. I don't know. It just seemed like a waste of a tussle between him and Michael that we could have seen these two like superhuman evil entities going at it in a more interesting way than the one shot in the sewer where they're, wrestling.
Yeah. Let's talk about, well, first of all, what did you think of Michael's death in the kitchen? I thought it was kind of fun.
Well, as I mentioned before, I felt like there was the baptism scene when they killed the cop together, and then you have a crucifixion scene here on the kitchen table again. And as I had kind of harped on a little bit earlier, this movie is just so obsessed with, that domestic feel and how you're supposed to be in a safe space. And they take that kitchen table where you're supposed to, bring sustenance to your family. And then they use the tropes of the knives that he's so good at using, and pin him down there, the refrigerator.
Yeah.
Pinning him down too. I didn't hate the way that he went in the kitchen. And I was very happy how he was finally taken out, because I swear, as I was watching it, they showed that scrap metal grinder like 3 or 4 times, and I'm like, who's going to be the one who's going to get the ground up?
They set that
who's it going to be? Is it going to be the big fat guy?
But speaking of foreshadowing, I'm sure this was on purpose, but Corey's hand is cut, his left hand is cut with the chocolate milk jar or whatever.
Yoo-hoo was the Yoo-hoo ripoff.
Was it Yoo-hoo? And Michael's stabbed in the same space. What do we think about that? Do we think, was that just foreshadowing?
I'm not sure that was conscious. Maybe. I'm not sure.
Or is it a bigger
question.
Stigmata type feeling?
Okay. Yeah. That does go back to the crucifixion for sure.
For Michael.
He's dying for our sins. I don't know what to say. I don't know. I hadn't thought enough about that to pontificate too much on it. Other than I do think there was Christian undertones, but like ironic since it's David Gordon Green sort of thing, like the opposite
and
of
Danny
Jesus
McBride.
here. And Danny McBride too. Yes. What do you think about them bringing back just for that final sequence our sheriff with the cowboy hat?
That to me was just
in Haddonfield, Illinois. Like, what are you doing
the sheriff.
with that?
Fan serving, like maybe people really liked him. Like, we got to show him to close the chapter on him as well.
I wasn't a huge fan, but
it was just like it was just funny. Like this weird murder parade too. By the way, where they're just like,
it seemed to kind of like go against what I thought they were trying to do in that second one, and showing how mob violence is not a good thing, and then suddenly it's okay. But it is Michael versus them chasing down the crazy guy in the second one and kills. I thought it was catharsis for the town and for us, so I was kind of okay with it. I don't know how else you would have ended it satisfactorily for me, and seeing Michael's head combust in the grinder was
that was
really
pretty intense.
I was okay with it. And then to cut back, as I mentioned, to just these, well, of course, then we get the moment with Jamie Lee Laurie's and her romantic interest in the former sheriff.
Yeah, Will Patton. Yeah,
I thought it was cute. I'm sorry, I'm not a romantic guy when it comes to horror movies. I don't know how it really has a effective place, but when we're talking about the final movie with Jamie Lee, I don't think she'll do anymore.
No. She's made
almost
like made a promise.
Moving from hate and resent and trauma to potential love with someone who does have a sense of what she's been through. I was okay with that, and I thought it was cute, the whole cherry blossom stuff. She worked it into the memoirs.
Yeah.
You picked suicide or cherry blossoms. I was okay with it. I really like that actor who played the sheriff too, so it resonated.
Yeah, he's a great actor. Will Patton, I think his name is. But anyway, I thought it was just, like hope for Laurie Strode. She gets to finally have a normal life with someone, potentially.
That isn't Adam Arkin.
That is not Adam Arkin. Yeah.
Did you notice at the very end, the single shots, the still shots of her home? Did you catch the little Easter egg in the final frame?
Maybe.
She kept his mask. His mask is sitting on the coffee table. So she now is the owner of that beat up, scratched up, dirty mask. It is weird. Do you think that's healthy for her to keep the mask?
That should have gone into the metal scrap.
Yes, because if we're thinking along the lines of Jim Carrey's The Mask laws, then we're in trouble here.
You know what that is? That is not closing the chapter on this franchise completely.
Yes, I agree. I think that's the only thing that kind of left the door open when the mask is still around, especially given how much they emphasized Corey needing that mask to really get his super evil on, Mm-hmm. Prior to that, when he was just killing as himself, he killed the hobo, right? Did he kill anyone else just as himself without the mask?
Aside from the little boy in the beginning?
He brought the cop. He was still himself when he brought the cop, but he wasn't the one that killed the cop.
You could argue that he killed him by leading him to his death. Accomplice for sure.
Right. I hate to say it, but I mean, it could be the next chapter along the lines of this last Scream, where it's like a fanboy of Michael Myers who gets the mask, and then I don't know. But the mask being there is significant, and I didn't see it that first time. It took me the second time, kind of just scanning through it.
I want to go back and look now for sure.
Look at that, just on the coffee table. The house is all cleaned up, looking pretty again. But then you got this symbol of evil.
Now I can picture it in my head. I can see those, and I was just like, "Oh, things are calm." But no,
that's what I thought too,
for
sure. But
they were doing it for a different reason. But that's wow, that went over.
And one thing that really annoyed me is that Allison was all like, "Michael Myers is your problem," sort of thing. She says is who you are. She tells Laurie, Michael Myers is who you are. But Michael Myers is also so impactful on her life, killing her parents and her friends too. I feel like if she was still in high school, this was the sort of immaturity we might expect. But now she's out in the real world. She's a nurse. And what did you think about the interplay between granddaughter and grandma in this movie? Did they pull that off?
It was completely unhealthy. I mean, they both clearly need to talk about it. The granddaughter's not wanting to hear about it, not wanting to talk about it. Jamie Lee's finally ready to talk about it and write a book about it.
Right.
Very unhealthy that they don't actually probably do some family therapy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I didn't really get the sense, even after 4 years, that the daughter was that broke up about her mom and dad dying.
Yeah, we probably could have seen some more emotional breakdowns.
Right? Especially when it seemed like anything that was on the walls was Laurie's. Like there was some childhood handprint of her daughters. And then I really loved the picture on the wall of her and her two friends from the first movie.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember seeing that.
Oh, yeah,
that was
totally.
great to call back to that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, Allison's coldness, I guess, maybe is then associated with her getting sucked into Corey's, madness.
Well,
and
I think
one thing I got to give Corey credit for is he knew he had to leave that town. That town was the problem.
Yes. And I was just going to say, I think it says a lot about her character that she's so quick to not only leave, but to keep everything in that small duffel bag of hers, to your point. she's probably not at home here if she's able to just pack up that quickly to leave it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you on that. There are two other quick things I'd like to note. Just that how cool Corey's stepdad is. And he's watching Van Damme movies, avoiding his wife.
He's watching Hard Target.
In the junkyard. It was just such a great thing to be watching, to not be able to hear what was going on outside your room.
Yeah.
Oh, and the other one was, we talked very briefly about the scene where he sleeps in the house where the kid died, wakes up, Jamie Lee's there. But then he mentioned something as he's going to sit on the stairs. He looks up the stairs, says, "You want to do this, or am I doing it?"
Yeah.
So was Michael in the house with him? Was Michael sleeping upstairs?
I think that was a little bit too, I mean, I think we can easily, jump to that conclusion. I think this was also about Corey struggling with what's going on in his head and making that transformation.
Yeah. Okay. So that dichotomization is going on in his head. I get it. Okay. So it was probably more psychological than him shacking up with Michael.
Right. They're living with Michael Meyers.
Yes. Make sure that link to our gem of a parodic short
full circle. Michael's now living in a really cool big house. But I think if they wanted us to know that he was there, they would have shown us more of it almost reminded you of the house from Home Alone as well, by the way. And not identically, but like probably built around the same time, the banister on the stairs. But we don't really see much of that house aside from some of the first floor and a little bit of the attic. I mean, I think if they would have shown us more of the house, it would have been a little bit more, I don't know, convenient that like we could have pictured Michael living in there too, I guess.
Yeah. I don't see Michael really caring about comfort either. It seems like he's at home in the sewers.
In a sewer.
I just wonder, what is he eating? And he's eating rats or homeless people. I don't get it in terms of that. But yeah, again, evil doesn't need adult Happy Meals. They're good.
Unless that homeless man's bringing him food and feeding him and keeping him alive.
That's possible. The weirdness with that old man and what he said to him right before he got killed was like, "I'm Michael Myers, so bring him out." It was like this weird, contradictory statements.
Yeah, to me, it meant that old man knew exactly who he was, what he was capable of. It was almost like, was he keeping him around and alive for his own protection or his own madness? And was he actually feeding him as if it was like the monster in the cave?
Oh, I like that concept. Yeah. Yeah, that would make sense.
That guy was shithouse nuts.
Good casting, 100% on him.
Yeah. That guy was scarier than Michael most of the movie.
That's true. Yeah. Is there a horror movie about like some crazy hobo just killing people?
Well, there's a movie called Hobo with a Shotgun with Rutger Hauer, which is a fun, independent, I believe, Canadian film that is more of like a... no, I mean, it's horror elements, but it kind of reminds you more of like a Death Wish type movie.
Oh, okay.
Like an 80s vengeance movie.
Okay. And then, of course, there's the hobos in Devil's Advocate, if you remember, that are manifested by the devil to take them.
That's right. That's right.
The principal from Ferris Bueller. But yeah, I mean, I wish I was still afraid, but...
Do you hear me? I'm not afraid anymore.
I'm sorry. We never use audio sound.
No, we don't. But I like it. I like it. Oh, that's fun. Yeah, it is kind of ridiculous that we can make some sort of Home Alone parallels in a couple different locations.
Unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
And he is kind of home alone in that house, so it does work. Plus, we got Macaulay Culkin coming up again here in the new season of American Horror Story,
which just aired last night.
Did it? Okay, well, that's exciting. I wasn't aware.
They put 2 hours together, so like I would imagine that's episode 1 and 2.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's good news. But yeah, what else? You got anything else in the Halloween? Because I feel like we've tackled
here's what I think and what I'm afraid of. I think that Jason Blum and Blumhouse is done with Michael Myers. What I'm afraid of is that they may have ended it for everybody. Now, I know that they're jumping into other large
you mentioned Exorcist is his next project.
So David Gordon Green is going to be adapting the Exorcist movie or remake or whatever it is. And it's Blumhouse, you know, and as far as intellectual properties go, I think you're going to see Blumhouse going after Friday the 13th when they can, whenever those legal things are up, because Blumhouse,
Right.
Jason
And there's
Blum
still
would-
legal shit with Jason too, right? That's
Yeah.
trickier, I hear, than Freddy.
Yes, between the writer and the director of the first franchise. So you've got the director, who should get a lot of credit for where he took that, but the writer owns the characters.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's a bit of a mess. But I had heard just recently that there might be some sort of conclusion that went really quick, and we might be getting a Jason in the next couple of movies or years. Jason movies in the next couple of years. Now, do I trust Blumhouse with another big franchise? That's the real question to leave this episode with. Because
I mean, I do trust Blumhouse with it, but as I noted before, I think David Gordon Green and Danny McBride's sentiments are better suited focusing on the next Righteous Gemstones or
Right.
Vice Principals or Eastbound, because I personally get a lot more pleasure in and find what they do in those movies more important, and their singular capacity to attack the dark comedy so much more precious than the slight elevation that they're able to pull off here that we've seen on Halloween.
right.
As noted via their underlying allegories, you know. So I'm more concerned about David Gordon Green needing to kind of stay in his lane, I guess. And I don't
Sure.
like to pigeonhole people,
Mhm.
but I'm just worried that he's seen how quick it is to make these movies and
probably how
such the
fun.
return monetarily that it's going to become a no-brainer for him to kind of stick in this genre now.
Also, people are going to be approaching him with these projects. I imagine Jason Blum got the rights to Exorcist and went to David Gordon Green and be like, any interest? And David Gordon Green was just like, yeah, of course. It's The Exorcist.
Right.
But
Yeah.
what I am afraid of is them sort of, you know, monopolizing everything. And it's tough
That's
to
a
say
good
because
point.
the horror genre it really is about making sequels and about extending these characters in fun, different situations. However, I guess ultimately, as what you said a couple weeks ago when you saw the movie Smile, we really should be looking at and getting more excited about original horror ideas than revamping old characters.
Yeah.
But I'm a hypocrite because I also want to see Jason Voorhees again.
Same. And honestly, I'm more excited about the possibilities of Freddy, obviously, just the surrealistic nature that is singular to Freddy that's always going to be like my favorite, probably.
The
horror series
dreams.
because of that. It's just,
Yeah.
I just adore it. And I get like, so my parents' Exorcist, my aunt Exorcist was the one. That's the one that's the scariest for them. But as not a religious person, I've never really connected with the Exorcist like I have like Killers or whatever. So it doesn't super excite me that David Gordon Green's going that direction. I think, you know?
No, I mean, I mean, when you see that announcement, something like that, you're like, that's interesting. You know, it's not like, oh yeah,
right. But maybe he can pull something off that I don't know, was able to with Halloween.
Right.
As much as they were enjoyable, like you said, there's spots, but
yeah,
the whole is lacking.
Yep. Well,
But
we still have one more week of Halloween. We will be back next week with something Halloween related, not franchise necessarily, but horror related. And until then.
Oh, really?
I thought I had lined up. Stay alive, people.